Right, so today I'm going to break down the exact 5-step formula that I personally use within my agency at the moment to essentially sign retainers like this, right? So this one came in last week from a cold prospect that I onboarded using this exact method. It's not complicated stuff. It's 90% AI. Whether you run an agency at the moment or just trying to sign your first client, this is the exact formula for you. So without wasting any more of your time, let's get into phase number one. So phase number one is basically finding and approaching, right? So picking the right business here is key. So there's basically a criteria here that I'm going to give you, and I think you should follow it whether you think it's good or bad. So the first bit is find a business with a small team, right? You need a business between 3 and 10 people. Why? Number one, if it's too small, like a solo entrepreneur, they just can't handle that volume of leads that are going to come in from your new ads. And at the same time, it's too big. The company is going to be too big to actually manage, and usually they have it internally anyway. If a company's got 250 employees, it's going to have its marketing department. It's not going to go with an agency with small numbers of social proof. So that's number one. And number two is it needs to be a ticket of at least 5k, right? High ticket will always beat low ticket, especially when it comes to meta ads. Why? Well, this gives you margin of error to actually mess up, and it also gives you a healthy profit margin, right? I recommend construction, beauty, dentistry, that kind of stuff, things where jobs are £5,000 plus. So, like it says here, it'd be ideal if the client was already spending money to get leads, whether this be through ads itself or check a trade, things like that, because it's an easy concept to sell because they're already struggling with that bottleneck, and that's proven as they're paying for customers already. So the goal here is really to shortlist 5 to 10 prospects, whether these people are in your area or maybe they're quite far away from you. Just get 5 to 10 ideal prospects, companies that you think you could scale, because the way that we actually sign these is through offering a free trial. Now, this free trial method is bulletproof. Yes, it costs money. So basically what it is you reach out to a business and you say, look, I'll pay for ad spend for 10 days, £25 a day, £250 total coming out of your pocket. But the benefits of this is that, number one, it removes any bottlenecks from your actual outreach strategy. Nobody has time to be doing 150 cold calls a day. Nobody has time to be doing 50 personalized emails and DMs a day. And nobody wants to be sort of shut down and failed every single time, because a lot of those cold calls and DMs are just simply not going to land right. So think about it this way, that £250 that's coming out of your pocket gives you 10 days to show the customer and actually prove to them how you actually get your results, what you work like, and why you should be worked with as an agency. Now, yeah, £250 out of your pocket, but again, this is a pay to win strategy, because what business is going to say no to £250 in free ad spend? So again, this removes literally every scrape of risk from their side, and it makes it so easy for them to say yes and actually cross the line. So let's get into phase number two, which is basically onboarding them after you found your 5 to 10 people from your shortlist. Right, so before we go any further, if you've got any questions about anything I've said in the video so far or previous videos, make sure you join the Telegram, link in the description. You can message me on there or on IG. I'll help you out with any questions you have with your personal agency, whether it's with scaling or just getting started. And in the Telegram, I drop a load of free game and behind the scenes of what I actually do in my own agency. So yeah, hope you enjoy the video. Okay, so now that they've said yes to the trial, hopefully, now comes the part that most people rush, and it's the part that actually decides whether the trial actually works or not. So this is the onboarding phase, literally a 15-20 minute call that sets everything up. So short call, like I said, 15-20 minutes max, and on these calls I confirm 3 things: their exact services, which jobs are most profitable for them, and their target area, right? And I usually get Claude to basically get an onboarding form and go through the call and basically fill out each section so I can actually understand their business behind what I can see already on the internet. And then the question that actually matters, right? Who answers the phone when a lead comes in? Because this is the detail people skip. A great ad can mean nothing if the lead calls and nobody picks up, because that slow response kills the trial, not the ads, right? Because that intermediate phase between when the customer will fill out a lead form and when the client actually calls the customer, every second between that gap where the client gets colder and colder and colder, right? It's not as fresh on their mind, so they're likely to become less convertible. So that bit is key. So next step is getting access. So I get access to their Facebook page, the ad account, or maybe I set up like a fresh one if they already have it, depending on what the client's already running at the moment. Maybe they don't even have a Facebook account. And then I basically grab a handful of photos, short videos of their actual work. No stock images, no sort of AI stuff just yet. Just their real jobs. I usually set up like a Google folder, send that over to them, and literally say just upload any sort of videos, photos. It can be rough work, or it can be like 4K shot. But just any sort of clips you have of you doing your work would be great. And basically the goal of this step is to ability to launch ads on their account, number one, and actually gain content for making the creatives in step number 3. And then moving on to step number 3 inside of this phase, which is basically setting the expectation. So this is what basically protects the relationship. And 10 days will show leads and pipeline value, but not always a fully closed job, right? Think about the sales cycle of things like construction. It's going to take at least a few months for the build to actually happen, the payment to cross over, and actually the payment to land finally in the client's account, right? Especially on high ticket work. Sales cycles are much longer than 10 days. So before we start, we sort of agree together what a good result actually looks like. And that way there's no sort of surprises at the end for either of us, right? And that's basically it. One call, access sorted, expectations aligned. That's the whole phase 2. And next up is phase 3, where I actually show you how to use Claude to build the actual ads. So let's get into phase 3. So phase 3 is basically building and launching the ads, right? So this is the phase where Claude does the actual work. Research, copywriting, creative, things that used to take agency owners like honestly hours to do. And there's 3 steps. So research, build, launch. Let's go through it all properly. So step number 1, AI assisted research. Now, before I write a single word of copy for the ad, I feed Claude 3 things: their website, their reviews, and maybe 2 or 3 competitors. And I'm basically asking it to pull out their core services, the pain points, the customers who they actually have, common objections, local angles, basically everything that makes this business different from the one that is 3 streets over, right? And this isn't a nice to have. This research becomes the brief, right? It is the foundation behind every single ad, every single line of copy. Basically, if you build this and there's not enough effort put into this, it will ruin everything else, right? Your ads will sound generic and they just won't perform how they should if it was crafted from a local angle. So basically do it properly, and so it can actually sound like you actually understand the customer when the ads are being run. So it's really important you put some time into this. And the goal here is basically get a specific creative brief. Not a wall of notes, a clear brief that you can basically hand to yourself 5 minutes later and know exactly what to build, and you know exactly about the business, right? So step 2 is basically building the ads and the creative from that brief. Now, I use Claude to write the copy, and I always ask for 5 angles. So urgency, social proof, price, pain point, curiosity. Now, 5 angles means I'm not guessing which message lands. I'm testing each one properly from day one. Now, for the visuals, I turn their own photos into usually like simple static images, or UGC style sort of creatives. No polished photography, real jobs, real work, very native to the Meta platform because that's what they like the most. And why does this matter so much? Like, people will scroll past anything that looks like an ad. That's just the truth of it. The moment it looks corporate, the moment it gets ignored, right? Keep it native, keep it simple, because that's the stuff that actually gets stopped on. So the goal of this step is basically a fully ready to run ad set, copy and creative done in one. Look, so for example here I made a prompt for a roofer in Claude and then used that prompt to put it in ChatGPT, and this was literally created in about 5 seconds, which is something I'd run. So I'd usually do 2 static images and then 1 UGC style ad for a £25 a day budget, and basically split test them. But we'll get back into that in a minute in the launch campaign. So launching the campaign, basically the structure is deliberately simple. Now I've messed up a little bit here and I've said on a cost per lead objective, usually I just do one ad set, and within the ad set I split test, like I said, 2 static images and 1 UGC style video. Leave it 5 days, kill off any that aren't performing, and then I'll replace them with new ones that I've created, right? And always use an instant form inside of Facebook. No landing page. That basically removes the whole friction of the customer leaving Meta, which Meta does not like. And also people just don't like leaving Meta, right? There's less trust. And for a budget of £25 a day, 10 days, that's the £250 trial that we promised back to them in phase 1. And now it's actually live, right? And the goal of this whole phase, from research to launch, real ads live, generating real leads for the client to see. So that's the research, build and launch part, where basically Claude does all of the heavy lifting and genuinely replaces hours of work in minutes. So next up is phase number 4, where basically I'll show you how those 10 days are managed and how to turn that results into a report that actually seals the deal, right? So moving on to phase 4. So the ads are live, hopefully, and now the trial actually plays out. So, and this is basically where I make sure it goes as well as it possibly can. So 3 parts: route the leads, manage the 10 days, and then build the report that closes the deal. So step 1 for routing the leads instantly. Now this is really important because I feel like a lot of people miss out on this step. So every new lead that gets signed by the customer, no notification will automatically come to the client. So that, again, there's that period of between when the customer signs the lead form and when the client actually checks to see if the lead form has been signed. Let's say it's 5 hours. The customer is going cold in those 5 hours. So you want to route it instantly so they get a notification. One thing I love to do is Zapier. They've got a free plan on there, and you can get an email sent straight to the client so that you can reduce that runtime between the lead form being submitted and the client actually calling the customer, right? Just do whatever's fastest. You can do it text, email, Telegram, all sorts. So the speed matters here more than anything else. The faster that they can call that lead, the more likely it closes, right? And basically the better my trial will look at the end. So the goal here is simple. Basically, the client sees the lead arriving in real time, and that's what builds trust while the trial is still running. So step number 2, managing the 10 days. Now I check the campaign daily, not once and forget about it, literally every single day, day in, day out. And if an ad isn't performing, like I said earlier, after day 4 to 5, I'll cut it and replace it with a new creative. And yes, I'll kill it and shift that budget towards the new testing phase. So the only thing that I do as well is only change 1 variable at a time. So let's say if you change 5 variables and your output increases by 10x, then how are you going to pinpoint which variable was actually responsible for that 10x? So if you change the copy and the budget and the audience all at the same time, you literally learn nothing. So you don't actually know what's moved the needle there. So basically, change 1 variable at a time. And the goal for this step is basically a cost per lead that's steadily improving day by day. Now that is hard because you only have 10 days to actually master it essentially. But within those 10 days, you can get a decent enough cost per lead, which is impressive enough for them to stay on. Now, step number 3, which is the weekly sort of end report. At the end, for every single one of my clients, I produce 1 clean page. So I say Claude does it all. So leads generated, cost per lead, total pipeline value, leads multiplied by their sort of average job value, and basically make this so it's plain English. No jargon, no agency talk. And if they can't understand it in 10 seconds, then it's not done its job properly, right? So this report is the single most important asset in the whole system. It is the proof that you close them on, right? This is what pushes them over the line and actually seals the deal. So make sure you route it fast, manage it daily, report it clearly, and you should be fine for phase 4. The next phase is the final phase, where basically we use that report to actually turn it into a £2,000 a month retainer. So let's get into phase number 5, which is closing and signing the deal. So 10 days are up. Everything you built so far has been basically leading to this one call. Now, this is where the free trial actually turns into the 2K a month client. So step number 1 is the results call. So I walk them through the report live, not a screenshot sent over WhatsApp. I get on a call, I go through it with them line by line, and I basically anchor everything on that pipeline value that I've generated for them. So I'll literally say plainly, like, these leads represent X amount in potential jobs for you, all just for £250 of the spend we've done. So here's the mindset shift for this whole call. So I basically let the numbers do the persuading, right? I'm showing them something that has already happened. So they can basically clearly see the return on the investment, right? It's in their own numbers, it's in their own leads. The proof is literally in the pudding here. So moving on to step 2 is when you present the retainer, the framing matters so much here, because basically I price it on against the pipeline value. So I just generated for them, never against monthly bills or what they can technically afford or what seems reasonable. I always frame it against the pipeline value that I've actually created for them. So by this point in the process, you're obviously not going to be a stranger asking for trust. It's proven that the system works, and they've seen it work, more importantly, in their own business. So the goal here is the offer is on the table, backed by evidence they can't deny, and they simply can't argue with it. So then you move on to step 3, which is actually signing and taking the payment. So I usually use Stripe. You can use any payment processor. And I send over like a simple agreement, again, made by Claude, and the invoice. So start date, the monthly reporting date, where they can expect to get to, what we're going to sort of focus our goals on. And it's really important that you set that there and then on the call, and you get the deal signed on the call. Now, I say why there and then, because I like to essentially sign them off the momentum I've just created. Again, if you talk about the intermediate step between when the customer fills out the lead form and the client actually calls them, it's the same process here. We want the results to be fresh in their mind. We want them to be eager. We want them to be urgent to actually sign on with us and continue seeing these results, right? So if you give it a week, and the urgency will just simply fade. So the math that actually works behind this is £250 of ad spend, like we said in phase 1. That's coming out of my pocket. Proof and pipeline value, assigned £2,000 a month retainer is roughly 8x on my trial cost back. Obviously, there's some time that's been put into there. You might have to pay for a Claude subscription, but we're looking roughly at an 8x here. So that basically recurs every month as well, presuming that you can actually produce results month on month, which is easier said than done. But that's basically the full 5-phase system, start to finish. The find and approach, onboard, build and launch, letting Claude do all the heavy lifting, run and report, and close and sign. So if this was useful, make sure you join my Telegram. It's literally the first link in the description. I go through behind the scenes within my agency. And if you've got any questions, if you already run an agency or sort of looking to get into it, drop me a DM there. I'll try and help you as much as I can. But I hope this was all helpful and it all made sense.